Hey, I'm Dr. Padgett from Clements Ferry Veterinary, and we're going to talk a little bit today. Sometimes our clients have some questions about some pet food myths and common misunderstandings that we see in the news and a lot of the marketing material that we see out there. My assistant Kristen is going to help us out with asking some questions, and hopefully we'll get some better understanding.
Dr. Padgett, is a dog able to live on a vegan diet?
So the simple answer to that is yes, depending on how strict the vegan diet you're talking about is. But dogs, unlike cats, are not obligate carnivores, meaning they can get their protein from plant-based diet, so they do not have to have meat. I do not recommend a vegetarian diet for a dog. There's very few instances that I would recommend that. So as a general rule, no, I don't recommend that, but they can actually exist on a vegetarian diet.
Is wet food more nutritious than dry dog food?
Wet food is not necessarily more nutritious than dry dog food. It changes the composition makeup of it, and they will eat a different amount than the dry food in order to get the same amount of nutrients. But in general, no, there's not a difference in the nutritional makeup of them.
Are prescription diets better for my dog?
Prescription diets are only recommended for specific illnesses and diagnoses. So in general, a healthy dog does not need a prescription diet, nor would we recommend that for most dogs. That is a prescription just like a prescription antibiotic would be. So we're only going to prescribe it when there's an actual need for it.
If my dog eats grass, does that mean they are missing something in their diet?
Not necessarily. I always tell my clients I have a dog that eats grass just because he loves to eat grass every time he goes out. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong. He just likes to eat grass, and there's nothing wrong with that. However, a lot of times, or even most times, a dog that does have an upset stomach will definitely go and eat grass, and they may do it more readily than they normally would. But just because he does not mean that there's a problem.
Will human food make my dog overweight?
Not unless we feed too much of it. Just as everything with feeding regular food. I would say this, that normally when dogs get a lot of people food or table scraps, they typically get more food in general. That's just what I normally see. So no, if he eats the right amount of it, it's not going to make him overweight, but that does have a tendency to make them overweight because they're not only going to eat the people food, they usually always get their pet food as well. So.
Will free choice feeding make my dog overweight?
For the most part, yes. Free feeding, most animals, most dogs will get overweight from free feeding. Now there are some, and I have quite a few clients that do free feed their animals, and they self-regulate and they maintain a healthy weight. But for the most part, our chow hounds, our labs, and our goldens, if you put it down, they're going to eat it, and that's in general that's usually too much. So I do not recommend free feeding for most dogs.
What are some other myths about dog nutrition that you hear as a veterinarian?
So the two that come to mind are grain-free and raw food diets. I don't recommend either one of them as a general rule. And I'll start with the grain-free diets. Grain-free diets, well, it's very uncommon for dogs to have a grain allergy. This flies in the face of everything that you will see online and on the marketing. Grain allergy is very uncommon in dogs. It does happen, but it is very uncommon. The general allergies that dogs have is to one of the major meat proteins, whether that be poultry, pork, beef, chicken, turkey, lamb, whatever it may be. That's typically the most allergies are going to be to one of those major meat proteins. Grain allergy is very uncommon. There's a lot of studies going on right now to figure out there's some correlation between grain-free diets and a heart condition called dilated cardiomyopathy. The Golden Retriever study that was done at UC Davis found a correlation between Golden Retrievers who don't normally have that condition, that they were suddenly coming down with dilated cardiomyopathy, or some of them were. And so they did some research and found out that all these dogs were being fed a grain-free diet. Now, it's not as simple as you feed your dog a grain-free diet and he's going to develop a heart condition. Not at all. We're not exactly sure what the correlation is. It seems to be not necessarily the lack of grain, but actually what they're replacing that grain with, and that's typically legumes like peas or lentils. So there's some association there that's making them more prone to getting these heart conditions. So as a general rule, until we figure it out, we don't recommend grain-free diets unless there is an absolute known grain allergy that we have diagnosed. The other one is a raw food. I get this question all the time. I am not a fan of raw food diets just because of the contamination risk. Constantly we get recalls on outbreaks with Listeria and Salmonella from raw foods. Just because they are freeze-dried or dehydrated does not remove all of the contaminants and bacteria from them either. So in general, they do not need a raw food diet, and I think that the risk outweigh the benefits of feeding those.
Thank you so much, Dr. Padgett.
Thanks, Kristen. As always, if you have any questions about nutrition or anything else, please don't hesitate to reach out. Oh, I gotta start.
That's gonna be a blooper.
All right.